My reading, I apologize for. It is because you're going to get in the middle of, because of the time crunch, middle of a chapter in the novel where this one of my characters, Frank Farley, has come home from a fire briefing with a fire that's been threatening the mountains and the mountains where his family homestead is. And it's 80% contained. I said, don't worry anything about it. So he goes home and tries to occupy himself by working on a plan. He's a blueprint. He's an architect. And then things change a little bit. It wasn't until sometime later that Frank became aware of wind keening at the kitchen's west window, and his attention broke. The wind had shifted. Then he tossed down his pencil and bounded up the stairs to his roof deck. What he saw made him grasp the deck rail to stay up. Out of the morning's quiet spirals of smoke had sprung some monstrous mushroom cloud. The vague-edged dome loomed so large that it dwarfed the sawtooth mountains it hung over, reducing them to mere wrinkles on the earth. So huge it diminished the higher mountains around Rattlesnake Canyon a few miles away. The dark, amorphous cloud mass had to be 5 times taller and much wider than the sawtooths, overshadowed the entire range. And from the very middle of the mushroom snaked up the white neck and pillowy head of what looked to be an innocent thundercloud, which of course it was not. And the entire mass continued to expand as he watched. But how could this have happened so quickly? As if an atom bomb had gone off. He'd only been at work a couple hours. Then he looked back up at the colossal cloud and saw something even more horrifying. The mass began to suck inward, fast collapsing into itself, until all at once it spewed out in all directions. Frank ran down the stairs and across the yard and leapt into his pickup. He punched the gas and peeled out, heading toward the paved road. When he reached Frontier Town, the mushroom no longer looked like a mushroom, but like the rushing wall of some roiling black tsunami. He had but one thought, his Aunt Mattie. He had to get her out of that canyon. When he sped onto the paved road, he jammed down on the gas, his speedometer bounding up to nearly 60 on the short stretch of asphalt. By the time he turned onto the dirt road into Rattlesnake Canyon, a wall of flames came raging out of the sawtooths, heading straight for the mouth of Rattlesnake Canyon. He flew through the turn onto the canyon road and mashed the gas, let off as he went around a curve, but still it was too fast. His truck spun around once, then again as he fought to keep it from turning over. He managed to get the truck righted, then looked over in shock to find the wall of flames halfway to the mouth of Rattlesnake. Even with his windows rolled up and the air conditioner on, he felt the burn of intense heat, heard this fire's horrid hissing roar, like some insane and out-of-control freight train. Flames along the front looked to be 2 telephone poles high, even while stretched out perpendicular to the ground, pointing fiery fingers toward Aunt Mattie and the canyon's mountains. He mashed the pedal onto the floorboard, wove down the road until he reached full speed, becoming airborne over dips, as if he wanted to make the truck take off from the ground and fly through the air to the canyon, which, if it were possible, was what he would have wanted. All the time, all the while, the sound of the train he raced got louder and louder. The smoky haze made it hard to see, but from what he could see, as he neared the mouth of the canyon, he realized flying might be the only way he could beat the flames there. And even if he did win the race, made it to the homestead with flames right behind him, what then, he wondered briefly. He would be as trapped as Mattie. He picked up speed again when his truck leapt over the bank of a wash, bounced twice, then continued weaving down the dirt road. Bushes flared up around him. A covey of quail flew out from an igniting scrub oak beside the road, then exploded into flame in front of his truck. Little feathered fireballs his speeding truck bashed into. He clenched his teeth when a fiery rabbit ran into the road and felt the crunch of it beneath his tire. The smell of singed rubber alerted him that his truck might combust as well. Then the main wall of the firestorm beside him won the race into the canyon's mouth. He watched flame being sucked up the funnel of the canyon, gaining speed as the fire reached the pitchy piñons. And all around him remained igneous tentacles to grasp ephedra, yucca, oak, juniper, turning them into 1,000 forms of burning bush. Sound shifted to retreating train, accompanied by the hiss and crackle of its wake. He had lost by almost a mile. His heart turned to charcoal. Fire was also behind him now, and beside him, but less so to his right. He wiped away sweat dripping into his eyes, his throat raw from smoke-filled air. Frank swung the truck off the road and gunned it through the obstacle course of rocks and brush, burning and not. His ex-wife Sandy's place and the other dirt road to the pavement was not more than a half-mile away, if he could just make it that far. At the top of a ravine, he flew over a sagebush, came down on the other side, one tire jacked up on a small boulder hidden under the vegetation. He felt his right shock break, gunned the truck on, winced as he drove over a cholla, knocked aside a small Joshua tree. He was past the burning bushes now, but not by far. He could see them creeping up behind him, feel their heat. When he plowed through the brush and into Sandra's yard, he almost didn't stop, but her Jeep was there. He skidded to a halt, had to make sure she wasn't. Frank ran through the living room and into the kitchen, instinct making him slam windows closed as he went. It was there in her bedroom that he found her, naked on top of the spread and peacefully asleep. He grabbed her arm and pulled her up. "Sandy, you got to get out of here." "Frank, what are you doing?" Bewildered and half asleep, she tried to grab the spread to cover herself. "We've got to go, Sandra, now." She looked around, gave a cough. "Smoke?" Then her eyes opened wide. "Oh, my God," she said, "the fire. It's right outside. We've got to get out." He pulled her toward the door. "My clothes, I need..." He grabbed up her abandoned shorts and a shirt from the floor as they went. "Put these on in the car," he said. He'd got her almost to the door when she wriggled out of his grasp. "My purse," she said, and ran back into the bedroom. He followed and grabbed her, herded her out the front door as she protested about not having shoes on. "You don't have time," he told her. "Oh, my God," she said again, when they reached her yard, the heat and smoke, now hard to run through. A Joshua at the edge of her clearing erupted into flame. An oak across from it was already on fire. She looked back toward the mouth of Rattlesnake Canyon. He thought of he heard her say, "She," her eyes filling. "I know," he said, "I know. Aunt Mattie might still be up there, but we don't have time. We gotta go. You can save your Jeep, but you'll have to drive like death's right behind you, because it will be." Sandra nodded, gave one last glance at the canyon, then took off for her Jeep, digging in her purse for keys as she went. He ran for his truck, pulled out from a Spanish dagger torch that had left a spear of scorch uncomfortably close to the gas tank. He caught up with her, leaned on his horn to get her to move faster. The dirt road curved south toward the paved road, taking them out of the fire's main path. By the time they reached the place the paved road intersected with the other dirt road, he found a few fire vehicles had gathered. The crew stood looking back at the area. They pulled up beside the fire trucks, and he and Sandy got out. Beyond the flaming chaparral, The mountains that held his family homestead were hidden under a hovering curtain as black as ravens' wings. Then he heard Sandra scream, looked over to find her staring at her cell phone as if it were a rattler that had just bit her. She stood there barefoot, her knit top inside out, clutching at her heart as if she wanted to claw it out of her body. "It's Crystal," she gasped, her face contorted with panic. "A text. She texted while I was asleep. Our baby is up there, Frank. Up there in the fire." She dropped the phone, ran toward her Jeep. Frank went after her, grabbed her back out as she tried to get into the driver's seat, held her shoulders as she struggled to get back in. "You can't," he said, unable to keep his eyes from welling. "It's too late, Sandy. Too late." Thank you. All the books